Like we're coming in from all over. Well, welcome everyone. I hope your first session was great. Dr. Kristen Topolinsky will be talking about claim evidence reasoning writing today. We'll get started in just a couple more minutes. Got some Michigan, Atlanta, Georgia, Philadelphia. More from Michigan. I'm also from Michigan. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan right now. Ooh, South Haven. All right. More from Pennsylvania. Some more California. Our co-host will be here in a minute. We're going to have a co-host, Natasha Martin. Got Detroit, Michigan, more California. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Illinois, ooh, Las Vegas. More from Philadelphia. All right.
Hey,
Hi, Natasha.
Kristen. Oh my goodness, we already have 50 people
I
here.
know, it's great. We've
Fantastic.
got a lot from Michigan. I was telling them I'm from Michigan too. And we've got a lot from California, and we've got all over the country. New Jersey, we've got Illinois, Florida, all over. Pennsylvania, lots from Pennsylvania.
All right.
Kentucky.
Hopefully, I haven't,
Yeah.
I'm in California, so I haven't been following. Hopefully, it's not too hot and humid out there on the East Coast this week.
No, it's not too bad for us right now. It was actually 50 degrees this morning, which is unusually cool for a summer morning. So it was really nice this morning. Yes,
Oh,
for sure.
wonderful,
Yep.
wonderful.
We got some from Indiana, some more.
Awesome.
Let's see. Yeah. All right.
So these are glad we've got the science peeps
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Everyone loves learning more about the claims, evidence, and reasoning. So glad
Yes.
we
Yep. We'll get started here in just 1 minute, but yeah, we'll be talking about claim evidence reasoning today. I've got a lot of great things for you all to use this year with your students and some good tips and tricks and things for you. So we got Chicago, it looks like. So some more from Illinois, New Jersey. So, all right. We'll give everybody another. Oh, it looks like it's time. We'll go ahead and get started then. Everybody can see my screen, correct?
Yep, we can see
All
it.
right,
I'm just
great.
to let folks know what I'm going to be doing
Okay,
during this session. I'm Natasha
okay,
from TCI. I'm going to be manning the chat. I'll also be manning that Q&A button. So if
great.
you have questions that come up, please, post them either in the Q&A or on the chat. I'll try to get an answer or I'll save it for Kristen at the end. And then I'm also will be sharing with you some resources throughout. So there's a resources button. You'll see at different points. I'll add a document into that so that you've got some takeaways as well from Kristen's session.
Yes, yep, for sure. So I'm Dr. Kristen Topolinsky, and I have taught elementary through middle school. Over the last 28 years, I've been in education. So very exciting times and a lot with claim evidence reasoning and argumentative writing. So we're going to go ahead and get started here with just some housekeeping. Again, use that Q&A button. Natasha will let us know what questions you have. If you want to see closed captioning, you can click on that show closed captioning, and then make sure you chat with everyone so that we can hear your great ideas. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is kind of our agenda. We're just going to kind of define claim evidence reasoning, just to kind of give us all that baseline of what we're talking about here. We're going to talk about the progression and how it progresses in the standards very briefly, and then we're going to get into some suggested ideas for claim evidence reasoning. We're going to talk a little bit about lessons and ways that you can scaffold the teaching of claim evidence reasoning with your students. And then we've got a toolkit for you as well as a graphic organizer I'll show you where that can be found within TCI. And then we'll end our session today with questions and answers. All right, so we're on to claim evidence reasoning writing. This is one of the graphic organizers that we're going to show you that we'll be using. or we'll be talking about that this is one of the tools that you can use when you're working with students. But I want to start obviously with science and NGSS. We start always with a phenomenon. So I'm going to play this short little video for you, and I want you to just chime into the chat. Can you relate to this phenomenon?
Drinking hot coffee, guys. Drinking it hot. And as many cups as we want. Going to the bathroom anytime we want, and not having to worry about somebody watching and wondering how long we've been. And actually going out for lunch. And driving home without an attitude or crying. Enjoying a glass of wine during the weekday. Well, let's be for real. We still enjoy a glass of wine during the weekday, even if it's not break. Not having to set our alarm. Oh, not setting an alarm, and getting to sleeping as long as we want, and not having to hide our snacks or be asked to share, just enjoy them all by ourselves. Sitting down to complete a task uninterrupted, or having your name called a million times. Well, unless you're a mom, and then it's just like being at school.
So hopefully you can relate to that phenomenon. I know I sure can. It's nice on those days. You don't have to set an alarm um, and just kind of be free to go to the bathroom when you want and everything else. So definitely, hopefully you can relate to that phenomenon as well. All right, so the definition of claim evidence reasoning really is defined by the claim being that statement that is really the piece, that the foundational piece that you're building the argument to convince someone of something that's happening scientifically. And the evidence is going to be that quantitative as well as the qualitative or numerical and observational data to support that claim that you made. And then that last piece is the reasoning, and that's really the connection piece, right? You're synthesizing and connecting the claim to the evidence with those reasonings to help really build that argument and solidify it. So those are the three pieces that we're talking about there. So with NGSS and the Common Core state standards, really the crux of it was to get people out of their silos, to really integrate English language arts in with our science standards. And one of the ways that we do this is really by using claim evidence reasoning writing. And our students really, this is a skill that builds different scientific pieces as well as writing pieces to help them be successful adults, right? They're going to have to build arguments all the time as they get older and continue on in school after elementary. So that is really the crux of that, is really just to bring in and integrate these different content areas. All right, so in the progression of the claim evidence reasoning writing and the standards, claim is actually introduced in 5th grade. Evidence pieces start in 3rd grade, and then reasons start in kindergarten. Kindergartners can give reasons, but then reasoning is introduced formally in 6th grade. So this type of writing, which again we talked about, is an argument. The entire piece comes together in 6th grade, but we can continue to build pieces and really set our students up for success by introducing these pieces earlier than where they fall in the standards. All right, any questions or thoughts so far?
I no questions yet so far.
Okay, right.
And I just want to make one comment on that last
Sure.
part you made.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of like building blocks that we're we're looking for with kids. Can you what do you think is when you say reasons, like can you give an example? Like what's that most basic level we want the kids to start with for that first building block?
We want them to be thinking about how science is related to the real world. So when we get into the reasons, and I'm going to show some examples of this later when we get into our one way to introduce it. But certainly we want them to be making connections in the real world about different things. So for example, like we might do something like a bird building a nest. And one of the reasons might be, well, the bird has to build the nest so that they have a place to lay their eggs. So when we get into reasoning and reasons, we want them to be making connections to the real world. So things that they observe every day. And we're going to definitely connect those. pieces.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So there's lots of ways that you can introduce claim evidence reasoning. This is one that I have used with my students, and it's just kind of a fun one. But we're going to watch this quick little video. And the first time, we usually watch it a couple times through, at least twice. The first time, I just ask them to watch the video, and I just want them to observe and think about what happened to the cat in the video. And this is a Doritos 2012 commercial from the Super Bowl. So I love myself a good Super Bowl commercial, but we'll go ahead and watch this and then just be thinking about what happened to the cat. You can throw it into chat when you realize what happened to the cat.
Honey, have you seen our cat? Nope.
All right. So yes, we're seeing some answers in there. Yes, the dog has done something to the cat. We're sure of that. And so after they watch it the first time through, you're going to watch it again a second time. And then you're going to ask them to collect the evidence to support their claim about what happened. So let's go ahead and just rewatch it. I'll go back a slide here. There we go. Hang on. Oops, sorry. I got tools out that I didn't even realize I had. All right. There we go. Okay. Now this time, go ahead and look for those pieces of evidence that tells us or helps us to understand exactly what happened or what the dog did that shows us that he definitely did something to the cat. All right, sorry, I'm having technical difficulty. There we go.
Honey, have you seen our cat? Nope.
All right, so, and I think some of you definitely threw in chat some of those reasons that you saw, but certainly that the dog was burying the cat's tags was one of the pieces. The missing cat sign in the picture of the cat with the tags on, the dog growling at the man, the dog giving the Doritos with a sticky note, you didn't see nothing, and then the dog at the back door with another bag of Doritos to bribe him. So those are the pieces of evidence that you can collect. And then the students will be able to come up with that simple claim. I think that the dog ate the cat, the dog buried the cat's tags, and then the reasoning dogs and cats don't always get along. So certainly the dog had something against the cat and did something with the cat. What are some other ways that you may have introduced claim evidence reasoning in your classroom?
You guys can.
Looks like somebody else has used a commercial before. Yep.
Yeah, it's a slip or trip, which I'm not familiar with.
I'm not as familiar with that one either. My dad's an alien. Okay. That sounds like a fun one too. I don't know that one. Lab work, maybe just start with the lab and just introduce it. Our cat's liquid demonstrations. Audi commercial. Lab write-ups and experiments.
Another one we've used a lot at TCI is what we call the detective analogy, where it's kind of like a crime scene, and we kind of take kids through that process of like, what does a detective do when they arrive, and that first thing, if they're just writing down everything they see, all that different evidence, and then from that, how you kind of build that case so that you kind of come up with that claim, and then you're giving them specific evidence and the reasoning based on kind of like a crime, kind of that crime scene investigation idea.
Definitely. That's a good one too. I've also done it before where I might purposely place like pictures and things around the room on the very first day of school and then see if they can figure out some things about me just to get to know me. I've done that before too. So you could do something like that where they're then making a claim about you based on the evidence in the classroom. You could do something like that very first day of school if you want. But yeah, you don't have to teach it separately. You can certainly just bring it in right with your first lab and just kind of get them going on that. But those are all great ideas. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to kind of jump in, and I'm going to show you some samples and some sample lessons and how you can kind of bring in the claim evidence reasoning for each of those. If you're teaching in a K-5 classroom, you're going to see that claim evidence reasoning piece is built right into your classroom activity slideshow. And also in middle school, you're going to see that it's built in there too. It is like kind of an extra bar, and I'll show you where that is in the classroom activity slideshow. All right, so here's this first one. What I tried to do is show you a little bit of how TCI scaffolds different learning, and this one's about force. And it starts right in kindergarten with pushes and pulls. So in this pushes and pulls, the students are going to use little wagons that you build, and some of them are empty and some of them have little stones inside of them. And you're going to the kids are going to learn about how, pushing something or pulling something based on the force that you put upon it, will make it move faster or slower. So whenever you're in the classroom activity slide deck, I can just show you this one. Like I said, it's going to get into that pushes and pulls. There's a little video that you can watch along with it. They get into some wagons and some other things. But if we jump right to making sense of the phenomenon, that's where you're going to actually get into the claim evidence reasoning. And again, in K-5, you will see this box here. What I love about TCI is not only do they give you the question that the kids are going to answer, but they also give you 2 examples, right? It's always nice, especially if you're teaching this for the first year, to have examples. And, obviously after the first year, you can collect these, but you want to make sure that they're connecting it back to that phenomenon. They're thinking about the push and pull activities that you did throughout the lesson, and then they can get to that piece of making a claim. To make the ball go farther, I would push or kick the ball harder. Then there's a couple pieces of evidence that they learned when a person moves their foot back 6 inches and kicks the ball, it moves. When they move it back 12 inches, it moves a little further. So you're going to be testing these things out as you progress through this lesson. And then the reasoning is when a person kicks a ball, it will move. Then with more force, it's going to move farther. So you can get to that kind of piece about how force impacts what's happening. Okay, here's a 4th grade one. This one again is what might be different if the ball were kicked more slowly. So again, we're getting into that force and we're talking about speed now as well. And this is a 4th grade lesson, and you're gonna set up different challenges in this one. They're gonna do a 1 meter challenge where they, let me show you a picture of there it is. So in this one right here, they're going to, pull the ball back and see if they can get it to roll 1 full meter. They're going to look at the angle that they're holding the board at. They're also going to look at these little lines and be tracking all that data. They're also going to you can go on and do a 2 meter challenge as well in this one as an extension. Always great for those kids who already know this stuff to have a little extension there too. So again, once you've tested the 1 meter, and you can do the 2 meter challenge as well, where they're looking at the angle and how, if the angle is much steeper, that's going to go much faster. And then they'll be able to come back to this question about the soccer ball, and they'll have watched this little video that just shows the soccer ball coming into the net and how the net moves based on the force. And then they can answer what might be different if the ball is kicked more slowly. So, all right, I'm looking at, so this one, in this example, if the ball is kicked more slowly, there's less energy in the ball than a fast kicked, and it would not move as much or make the net move as much. And so some of the evidence that you've collected is that a slow moving ball, again, only moves the net a little bit. Just like the ball that we set at a low angle. a fast moving ball or a ball that's rolled from a high angle is going to move the net more. So when the ball is dropped from that high angle, it rolls faster and it will hit the net with more force. And then that object is again going to have a greater impact. That net is going to swing much further. And they'll be able to see this with the different tests that they're doing throughout this lesson. All right. So the example of claim evidence reasoning from 8th grade is the wrecking ball challenge. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that one. I'm seeing some questions about the examples I'm showing you. What I'm showing you is just, this would be like in the note-taking phase. So when we look at, let's just look at the last one, the 4th grade one. Let me go back to that. It's a great question. So when I look at this, obviously you're going to have them by 4th grade, they're going to be writing it in a paragraph. So you would have them write a topic sentence where they're going to state the claim in the topic sentence. I usually, and I'll talk about this a little more when we get into like scaffolding, but I usually give the kids a choice if they want to do evidence and then reasoning and then evidence and then reasoning and then a concluding statement. And I usually do that in red. You'll see I have the claim in green intentionally, the evidence in yellow, and the reasoning in blue. And then I will add the red for that conclusion statement. So when I'm teaching this, I will have them type it or highlight it on their paper so that I can see quickly, do they have all the parts? Then I can actually read it and see, okay, have they labeled the parts correctly? Because reasoning is very hard, and it's the piece that really takes the longest, and that's why it doesn't come into the standards until later. Because it is the hardest piece for them. So they more than likely they'll get the claim down, they'll understand that right away, they'll understand the evidence pretty quickly too. That reasoning is going to be your hardest component to teach. And again, it doesn't come fully into the standards until 6th grade. So if this were to be put into a paragraph, we're obviously going to have, connecting words and other things as well. But great question. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. All right, so this 8th grade example, let me just close these out so that I'm on the 8th grade one. All right, so in this 8th grade example, again, we're still on force and motion. This is going to become much more in depth here in the 8th grade example. They're going to get into kinetic energy in the first investigation. They're going to be talking about the mass of the object and the speed of the object, and they're going to be dropping different balls. They're also going to be listening for the sound that the ball makes, and I'll just play this for you as an example so that they know when the ball first bounces, there's a different sound based on the amount of energy that it has. So let's just listen for a second. Hopefully you can hear that there's more than one bounce here. So you can tell, I'll play it again. That first bounce, there's much more energy than there is when we get into the subsequent bounces. So they're learning that sound also is a factor of this force. Okay, so then when they get into part 2, the first part we use the same ball. Now we're going to use a ball that has more mass. So we're going to be looking at different balls. So this one's 2 different marbles, but one's small, one's larger. And then again, we're listening to hear, is one quieter than the other? So the first time, again, we just kind of adjusted the height. The second time we're adjusting the mass. And the third time we're adjusting we're doing different, or excuse me, the third one is the different masses. So we're doing sound for subsequent. Second one is, back here, different heights. And then the third one is same height, but different masses. So and then we're going to talk a little bit in this 8th grade lesson about what happens in a vacuum, and will one make a larger sound or a louder sound than the other. And then we're going to kind of analyze that and get into that piece as well. So let me go back to slide 1 here. And then the last part, then we come back to that making sense of phenomenon. And since this is a middle school lesson, you're going to see it doesn't have that claim evidence reasoning piece laid out, but it is still here. So if you click on the claim evidence reasoning button right here, it sends you to the planner, which we're going to see later. This is just a little planning piece that you can use, that is a handout, and it just basically walks them through. Here's an example. You can use this as an example lesson, and then you can have them take notes right on this planning piece. But again, it's the same concept as the other ones. The question is, why does the wrecking ball cause more damage when it's swung from a longer distance? And as students look at this, they're going to see that the wrecking ball actually causes more damage from a longer distance because, again, it's the force, right? So no matter the weight, if we're pulling it back further, we're going to have that more kinetic energy as it hits the building. And they would have learned that through there's a bowling ball trial that they're going to look at, how the bowling ball travels. In the mass to kinetic energy ratio is 8:1. Then they're also going to look at, that's when it moves at 4 meters per second. And then they're going to look at data from 6 meters per second, and have an 18:1 ratio. So the faster the speed, again, the higher that kinetic energy. And certainly you could take them on a field trip and actually go to the bowling alley. That would be very fun. I'm sure students would love it. We usually would do a bowling trip once a year, so this is a great lesson to have at that time of year. But they're going to study some data around that if you can't take them. And then the reasoning is just that a bowling ball moving at a faster speed has more kinetic energy when it hits those pins. And just like the bowling ball, the wrecking ball is going to have much more energy if you're pulling it back further, and then that will cause more damage and help you to get the building down quicker. So certainly those are good examples. Yeah. Okay. And hopefully you saw that the toolkit is in. She dropped it into the chat for you. So if you want to see that toolkit, that is the same toolkit that we have for K-8. So, but certainly that last page that I showed you, you could use that for any claim evidence reasoning writing that you're going to do. All right, so just a little, we're just going to switch gears here. So I thought I'd bring us in a little science teacher joke. And hopefully you can see, you've got Bill Nye the Science Guy, and that's what our friends think we're doing every day. And then you've got Einstein, and that's what your mom or your parents or your spouse think that you're doing. And then what the rest of the world thinks we're doing is just hanging out on the beach all summer, right? But we're here on July 23rd for professional learning. And then I love the Snape one with what the students think that we're doing, just coming down on them, right? And the Goodwill Hunting, what we think we're doing, and then what we're actually doing, right? A lot of times we do have to look at writing and science, and we have to really, we have to grade papers and do other things just like English language arts teachers do, and just like every other teacher does. So certainly just kind of a little fun humor to bring it in. All right. So here's some scaffolding. We're going to switch gears now into scaffolding. So like I said, when I'm working with students, one of the first things we do is color code. Even in our notes, we'll color code the claim, the evidence, and the reasoning. Remember that, if you hold a high standard, students can do more than you think, and they will rise to that standard. So if you set the bar high, they're gonna really work to reach it. So one of the ways I do that is with color coding things. I obviously, the very first time we're going to do one all together at the beginning of the school year, we're doing it together. I'm not having them do it on their own yet. We're really scaffolding each piece. And in kindergarten, we might just be having them just, take pieces of take pictures or things that we've used in the investigation and just put them in order, or put them in piles. What actually was the claim, or what's the answer to the question? What were some of the evidence pieces we collected? And then maybe what are some of the reasons? Are we talking through them? Certainly at the lower grades. Using word walls or having some kind of vocabulary wall is so helpful. It's helpful for spelling. It's also helpful for just them getting ideas. So certainly having a science vocabulary word wall, definitely great. Using a driving question board or some place where you have put the lesson and the unit question. That's going to help them because you can keep referring to it each day as you're working through the unit. And that's going to just really help them refocus, like, okay, what have we learned so far? What questions that we had have we answered? Those are all helpful tools and things that you can totally use with your students. And then building charts and graphs together. And then I usually like this volume lab one I had here. Certainly I'm going to build it and I'm going to leave it on the wall for them, because even if they are unable to copy it down, they have that example and they can go back and look at it. So that's another way for us to really help them, is to build those graphs and charts together and then have them posted around the room, so that they can take a look at them and go back to them as they're gathering their evidence for their claim evidence reasoning. This is a TCI graphic organizer. It's got places for you to take all those notes in. So you've got your question, then you've got your claim, and I usually would have my students have 3 pieces of evidence and 3 reasonings. And then I would build in, like, students could do all the pieces of evidence and then all the reasoning, or they could do like what I call a seesaw, where they would give me the claim, then a piece of evidence, then a reasoning, then a piece of evidence, and the reasoning, then a piece of evidence, and the reasoning, and then their conclusion. So, you can kind of decide how you want to teach it. Do you want them to just do all the evidence and then all the reasoning, or do you want it to be more of a seesaw? And you certainly can scaffold that for your students who are totally capable of doing it on their own. The other thing that I always did was I would write out all the collected evidence. So I made sure that somewhere in the room we had all the evidence we had collected. We would have some of the reasoning that we had as well. And then usually we had the claim, and then some investigations, they might be able to make more than one claim. So certainly having an example of the claim or multiple examples is very helpful as well. All right. Okay. So the other thing that's really key when you're teaching claim evidence reasoning is giving them time to talk and process together. We know that learning is very social, and we want students to be able to process. So letting them turn and talk to their neighbor and say, hey, what's your claim going to be? And then sharing those claims together. We know also that this is super helpful for our English learning students. As they're trying to pick up vocabulary, sometimes they'll have great conversational vocabulary, but really to have scientific vocabulary is a little bit more challenging. So giving them time to talk with their partner and give examples of a claim, and then each of the pieces is really helpful. Again, modeling that entire process, right? So we've got to make sure that we really talk about each part of the process as we're going through it. And maybe the first time they're just writing the claim on their own. And then we're modeling the evidence and reasoning. And maybe the second time they're able to come up with the evidence. And then, really think about how you can model that so that, and slowly introduce it so that they really get it, especially in those lower grades. As you get into the middle school grades, they're going to have more skills and be able to do a little bit more, but certainly you want to model that. And also it's helpful, I think, with the modeling process is just, students, especially in middle school, have to code switch because they're in between different teachers. Or if you partner with another teacher, one teacher does science, one does social studies, or however you do that. So they do have to code switch a little bit. So modeling it shows them what your expectations are. It also shows them what an exemplar of what you're expecting looks like in your science classroom. So that certainly is going to be helpful if you've modeled it and given them that exemplar. They can always go back to it then. If you are keeping this in your scientific notebook, they can go back to that throughout the year and say, oh yeah, remember how she did this, or remember how she put this transition word in, or whatever it is. But having those exemplars is super helpful for students. And then, like I said, color code. So here's an example. Green is my claim. The evidence is always in yellow, the reasoning's in blue. And then, like I said, I add that conclusion. If you're actually having them do a formal piece of writing, the conclusion, I always have them put it in red. And I just have them highlight it if they're going to type it, or they can underline it with a crayon or a marker or whatever you have, colored pencil, in their journal, if that, in their scientific notebook, if that's what you're going to use. The other thing, we all have students with IEPs and 504s in our classroom. So the other thing that I frequently will do is I will gather a small group in, and sometimes I make it invitational. If I might intentionally invite some students, but then I might also say, if there's anybody who's, not sure how to get started, join me at, and have a small space to work. But then you can guide them through the instruction. And typically what I will do in this small group is I will make sure that everybody has the claim. Then we will look at the chart together that has all the evidence in it. And I might pick 2 or 3 pieces of claim and maybe just put a little star by it and say, okay, let's use these ones and let's work together. So that way, we're really doing a more guided instruction to help them get to that last piece, because especially if their learning disability is in writing, it's very hard for them. And so to have those pieces there is super helpful. So that they can really focus, and then you can show them an example. All right. So the other thing that is helpful, and you can use this in the guided or you can use it just in general, is to use frames. So if students are working on this, you might help them by saying, I think whatever, because. So when they're looking at their claim and they're thinking about their reasoning, or they're thinking about their claim, what is it that they think about that question, the question that we asked? So like, the question in this one was, why does the ball move farther when you kick it faster? Or what happens when you kick the ball faster? So whatever it is, they can say, I think the ball moves farther because, or, when we get into evidence, my evidence is, the data shows, right? Also, if they're adding another piece of evidence or another piece of reasoning in addition. So that's why I think. So these are just these little things right here. You can find them on Teacher Pay Teacher for free, and certainly print them out if you want to have little posters in your classroom. But these are certainly helpful when you use those writing frames, especially for our students that have 504s and IEPs that are, having a hard time getting started, or they're just not sure what to do. But you see it in the classroom, and the kids they grab onto it, and a lot of times whatever you write, then they're going to write. So having these frames to start will help them just be more successful. And obviously, as you get going throughout the year, you won't need them as much, but you definitely want them to be able to lean on them at the beginning when you're working on these. All right. Okay. So I showed you this piece, and I want to kind of jump into it again. I'm going to click on it. This is one of the toolkits that TCI has to use, and I'm going to show you where to find it, because it was a little tricky at first, but now I know you can. There's 2 different ways to find it. It's in the classroom activity. So let me go back to the classroom activity. This is the 8th grade one. So right here, if you click on Claim Evidence Reasoning Planner, it's going to come up right here. Okay, and this part is 4 pages. It's also located within another document. So I want to show you where that is. So if you go into your platform and you go into support, you're going to see the first one that we talked about, which was go down here, Claim Evidence Reasoning Graphic Organizer. We saw that one. Here it is. And then also the Claim Evidence Reasoning Planner. Now I'm in a 4th grade one, and it does make it a PDF, and then you can open it. I want to show you, because in the 8th grade one, it's in a little different, or the middle school one, it's in a little different location, but this is the 4th grade one. So you'll be able to find it in that Building Scientific Skills, and they're both right there. In the 8th grade one, it's in a little different spot. So let me just go back to my programs and show you. And it doesn't have to be integrated. It can be in any of the middle school ones if your district has the where they just purchase the units that you're going to teach. But if you go into support, you'll see that the Building Scientific Skills, this one is the graphic organizer. And then the claim evidence reasoning is actually within this science and engineering practices. I know that might be confusing, but if you go to science and engineering practices and you click on English, it's actually about page 17. So if you go down, I think it's 17. Yeah. If you go down to page 17, there it is. So you're going to see in here, it defines claim evidence reasoning for the students. It really talks about, the building pieces and how we build an argument. And then it does give them an example of real world phenomenon that they can read about it. And then it kind of goes into and talks a little bit more about that. So you can keep going. That one that doesn't, I'm not seeing hang on. Here we go. So then you've got that actual handout. And the handout you can use with any of them that you're writing, because it just says a clear claim supports the phenomenon. So they're going to describe the phenomenon. They're going to write their claim. Then they're going to come up with their evidence. And it kind of is just like, a note-taking sheet to help them put the pieces together. Once they have this done, they can take what they have here and put it into a formal piece of writing, that formal paragraph or multiple paragraphs. I mean, some of my students, when I taught sixth grade, some of my students would write, they would write a paragraph for each part. So totally up to you, and you can obviously scaffold that and differentiate for your higher students as well. Questions or things that you have about that before I continue going on? That's the tool. Okay. All right. Any other questions, thoughts, or ideas that you had around claim evidence reasoning?
I mean, Kristen, I think one kind of interesting conversation we had in chat was about how this type of skill building can really transfer over into your ELA instruction if you are an elementary teacher, or kind of help support what kids are learning in ELA in middle school.
Absolutely. In fact, when I taught all subjects in my classroom in elementary, definitely I didn't even have to teach argument writing. And even in middle school, when I taught this, the argument writing unit happened to be at the end of the year, and the ELA teacher came to me and said, like, I just give the kids a pre-assessment. He's like, they already know how to write an argument because of what you've taught them with claim evidence reasoning. So you're going to find if you teach ELA that you can literally just give them, like just a quick little checkup and see how they're doing. And you won't have to teach it. So certainly it's beneficial for everyone because you are setting those skills and you're getting into so much critical thinking around the science, and just those pieces of them thinking about what they learned and how it connects back to the phenomenon. And the other thing too for elementary people is to remember that, because my students every year, they would be like, phenomenon, that's like something big and great and this big thing. And like, well, no, it's really just like, look out that window, there's a bird building a nest, right? The phenomenon is those everyday occurrences that we see. And those are where the questions lie for the claim evidence reasoning, is in the phenomenon. So certainly that is a very helpful piece as you're building that, for sure. Okay, what else I've got? I'm just checking back.
Yeah, we had that question about, does TCI have a built-in CER prompt in each unit or each lesson? Or
yes, absolutely. Okay, and I thought I had I guess I don't. Let me. I'm going to open mine up, but can you throw in? I think I have. Well, what I've done, I actually did it myself, is I have a spreadsheet that I created, and it has every single grade level as a tab. I think. Got it. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Natasha?
Yeah, I'm okay. That right now. That's great.
All right, I'm going to open it myself so you can see it. But what I've done is, because in K-5, TCI has already done this for you. So if you go into I can just go into, I may go back to my fourth grade one. I'll just show you. You can literally go, or here at second grade, it's fine. You can go to any lesson, and when you go into the classroom activity slideshow, you're going to see, and I start a classroom activity slideshow, that when I get to that last part, making sense of the phenomenon, it has the question here for you. So here is your claim evidence reasoning. Now this is going to be K-5. So in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I did the integrated ones. I believe these are the integrated ones, but you'll be able to still see the units. Um, what I did was I took the unit and the lesson, and then I just put the question in. It's there, but it's kind of a little bit harder to find. So, and these are like when you see EC1, that's just like the engineering challenge. So these are different engineering challenges. So they don't necessarily have a claim evidence reasoning question with them. So that's when you see, I think the 6th grade might be the only one that has that. Nope, 8th grade has it too. So, but yes, I've made this spreadsheet for you to help you. And I frequently will have people ask too, like, how often do you actually go in and use CER? And what I'll tell you is I usually will look at the unit and I will try to find, one lesson or 2 lessons that really work well to having this claim evidence reasoning. And then I just use that as the assessment. I mean, if a student can tell me a claim about the phenomenon and they can give me evidence from what we've learned and they're getting the reasoning, I didn't feel like I needed to have another assessment. So certainly you can use this as an assessment and you can, just skip the other assessment. I mean, it's totally up to you, and I tried to build them in like once or twice. We did quarters in my district. We do quarters in my district. So I try to build it in once or twice a quarter. And obviously at the beginning of the year, I'm going to do a few more together and kind of start to give them more responsibility as we're working through this. But yeah, like I said, I sometimes just use this as the assessment. And honestly, at the beginning of the year, it's only a quick paragraph. It is very quick to grade, and it's color coded. I already have it color coded. I don't even let them turn it in unless it's color coded. So I can see quickly, do you have all the parts at least? And then I can actually read it and see, okay, is that really the evidence that you have highlighted there in yellow? So it's a quick way to assess. But other questions or things that we should address? I forgot. I'm so glad you brought up about the spreadsheet because I forgot about that. All right. Okay. Oh, I've never seen the racer before, but that would work well too. If that's a strategy that your district uses, you certainly could bring that in. And you can use lots of different graphic organizers. That's just one that we've used. And I do kind of like the flow chart. It makes it easier for the students to see where to pull those questions or pull the sentences from. Also, you can think about, the first time you're going to model it, the second time maybe you're going to have them work in a group of 2 or 3. Certainly you're going to really think about how to scaffold that in a way that's going to be helpful for them. So writing it with a partner or maybe a group of 3 would be great too. Certainly helpful. All right, let's go back to slides here. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. All right, so just remember that we're here to support you in every step of the way. We've got professional development, those self-paced courses that are there as well. We always have those TCI product updates. So remember that, when you log into your account, if the gift, I'm going to go back into my account and show you, if the little gift at the top has a little dot on it, that means there's something new, and you can click on that gift and it'll tell you what is coming up. And obviously this one is the Back to School Summit today. So that'll be there. It'll have a little dot on it, like I said, if there's something new that's coming our way. And then obviously the Facebook group as well as the Instagram groups you can join. Super helpful, like if you're trying to find a way to do some kind of writing, or maybe it's some kind of investigation, you've got a time constraint or whatever, certainly, throw out a question in Facebook and people will respond that are teaching your grade level and have experience. So certainly use that to connect with each other. It's very helpful. I am doing a time-saving tip session next. If you would like to come to that one, you certainly are welcome. We'd love to have you. So hopefully in chats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hopefully you've got a few things and you're ready to move on to the next session. All right.
And smiles and heart.
Oh, good.
For you.
Oh, I'm so glad it was helpful.
I'm gonna go ahead and put in chat too the summit lobby link.
Oh, perfect. Yep. I was
That
just
is
going to
where
say, there's
we're
the,
going.
yep.
Yeah.
Don't forget to share what you learned, share your one of the favorite things from your session so far, and to increase your chances of winning those gift cards. I didn't realize that we were giving away 50 of them. That is amazing.
I know. So people
I'm
can
so
treat
happy.
themselves before back to school. So yeah,
Yes.
just spend it on something for yourself, not
I
for
know.
tomorrow.
That's amazing. All right, so yeah, there's the link to join the session, bit.ly 2026-summit-sessions. And I think that's my last slide, so we're good.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right,
So you
well,
can go into that lobby and
yeah.
see what's in there for the third period session. Scroll,
Yep.
scroll all the way down. You'll see the ones that have the number 3. Those are going to be the third period. And we've got the session that Kristen just described. We
Yep.
also have another science session on performance assessment. So
Yeah,
that's
that's a
there.
good one too.
Yes. If you haven't had a chance yet to get to the teacher-paced mode, that's one of the new features we're rolling out this summer. You can participate in that and see how this new method. It's kind of like a Nearpod where you're able to control what the kids are seeing on their screen, so that we can have really productive screen time instead of like wondering what the kids are doing when they're on their laptop. So that one is 3F if you want to join into that session.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.